Rishus Chaverim v'Yedidim. It's a tremendous simcha for me to be here today. I didn't have the opportunity of sitting with Chaverim v'Yedidim for a while, since before Yom Tov. I'm a yuchid in these manim. The Belzer Rebbe said, a Yid comes to davening Monday and Thursday. A Yid says, Yiratzim ufnei Avinu shebashamayim. And a Yid says, when it comes to Achenu kol beis Yisrael anasunim batzara v'ashivya. So the Belzer Rebbe explains, when Yidden feel Achenu kol beis Yisrael anasunim batzara, that alone is the greatest Yiratzim ufnei Avinu shebashamayim. So I thank Hashem for the opportunity of sitting together with Chaverim v'Yedidim, Rishus T'chashav Rav Shlita. I look forward every morning for the positive good morning from the Rav Shlita. Hashem should give him koyach, continue being ma'achid Klal Yisrael. It's a tremendous simcha to see all the Chaverim v'Yedidim that are here today. Rabbi Feivish, Rabbi Moshe, Rabbi Portnoy Shlita. I want to give a shkoyach to Rabbi Meisels, all his avodah to help. But I'm zoicha to learn with many Yidden that I don't see. And the Eibusha should bench each one of us. We should be zoicha to continue being a chabura ba'achdus. I learned. I learned a tremendous lesson. Last week I learned a very interesting lesson. The Eibusha was Megalgal. I was in a shul. I went to daven Shachris in a shul, early minyan somewhere, and I didn't know one person in the shul. I come into the shul, I didn't know one person. I daven in the shul, now one person comes over to give a shalom aleichem. After davening, I hear one Yid talking to another Yid, and he says, the matzav of Klal Yisrael, there's tremendous achdus in Klal Yisrael. You hear what's going on in Eretz Yisrael? In Eretz Yisrael, there's Yidden, the Hasidim, and the Litvisha, and everyone's getting together. The religious, the non-religious. And I'm thinking to myself, sometimes a person can promote Achdus in the place that he is. And sometimes we forget that. A Yid is going to sit maybe this Shabbos, whichever shul he's in, and he's going to talk about Achenu kol beis Yisrael, Klal Yisrael, so together. But there might be one Yid on his table, or a new Yid that walked into his shul, that's where the job of a Yid is, to be Marba Abba V'Reis. And B'chlal, the Rebbe once said it many times in Klal Yisrael, there are certain hashpahs that come down. And every Yid feels right now is a tremendous hashpah of Achdus, and a Yid feels for other Yidden, tries at least to think a little of the pain that many Yidden are going through right now. But there's this tremendous avodah. The Ger Rebbe said a lot of times when there's ashpos, momala lamata, the ashpos could be used not always in the right place. Everyone agrees that we could agree to disagree. The Satmar Rebbe didn't have the same shita as Reb Shach. Reb Shach didn't have the same shita as other tzaddikim. The Baron Kotler had one shita. Many different shitas the Klal Yisrael have. Mitzad Sheni, the Satmar Rebbe, when he heard that a soldier was b'sakana, or he heard that a soldier was killed, the Satmar Rebbe would cry. And the Satmar Rebbe felt for the pain of Achenu kol beis Yisrael anasunim batzara. The Satmar Rebbe loved every Yid. So when it comes to Achdus, Achdus doesn't mean that the Achdus is used in places. Reb Shamshosh writes, Oysa shalom emroim avu yasa shalom aleinu. He writes sometimes a person can't necessarily have shalom, because there's different attitudes, there's different attitudes, there's different shvatim and Klal Yisrael. So for that, a Yid davens, Oysa shalom and Reima v'yasa shalom aleinu. But when it comes to differences, it's great to see Rabbi Beir Shlita. When it comes to differences, like davening in a shul, it's interesting. I landed up in another shul Shabbos, 2 weeks ago Shabbos, and I'm sitting in the back of the shul. It's a great thing for a rabbi. I would suggest it for the Rav Shlita to sit in the back of the shul, not in their own shul. It was a tremendous lesson. So I see one Yid walks into shul, and he's sitting next to the Yid next to him, and this is right after Yom Tov, right after Simchas Torah, and he's explaining why he didn't come to shul Simchas Torah in the morning. and he gives a whole speech how the akafas were too long, and he gives a speech that he went to the Hashkama Minyan, and he gave a whole speech about the problems of the shul. He was talking about the other shul down the block, I don't know the shuls, that shul's being so successful, and he's talking about all the problems of the shul. And I'm thinking to myself, instead of talking about the problems of the shul, if you would try to be Marba Ava V'Reis, and you would try to improve the shul, so Marba Ava V'Reis, many differences that we have are not such important differences, are not ideological differences. And there it is the avodah for the Yid to be Marba Ava V'Achva V'Reis. The Svarim HaKadoshim teach us that Chodesh Cheshvan is called the Chodesh of Merachshin Svasai. We know we have no mitzvahs for Poil to do this Chodesh. And the avodah of every Yid is all the aliyah that a Yid had this Rosh Hashanah, this Yom HaKodesh, like Rabbi Meir Shechter once told me, the Yom Noraim is about good moments. And the Chodesh Cheshvan is a time of Chazorah. For a person to Chazer, what aliyah did I have this Yom Noraim? And somehow, this year especially, if you go start talking about a Yid, about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, I happen to have looked, if you look at any newspaper from before Simchas Torah, it almost looks like it's a different planet. And you think to yourself, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, even when we knew a little on Simchas Torah, now it's a different world. But Mitzat Sheni, we got a Moridika eye-opener to what does it mean when we say, Unasana Toikev Kedushas Hayoim Ki Unoi Revayim? What does it mean when we say that the Eibush is judging Milo Yiska Kayoim Hazeh? What does it mean that Achaim Ba'Movis Harov? What does it mean? What does it mean? These things are psuchim. So we got a whole different attitude in our tefillas. And Be'ez Hashem, for next year, we're going to realize sometimes our tefillas might have been a little small, but there's a much greater picture. So the avodah of a Yid is to think to himself this Shabbos, what did I gain from Yom Noraim? What was my moment of Osiris? So I want to share what for me personally was the vart that I saw this year that was the Osiris that I had. And the vart was a vart from Rabbi Schwab. The way he explains, it's actually the Haftorah, one of the Haftorahs, but he explains, we say in the Haftorah, Leman loy nechtel me oishek yodein. So a Yid comes to Nila, and Nila, the Levush writes, why do you say, if you have Kippur Shechal Yos B'Shabbos, we say Avinu Malkeinu by Nila. And the Levush explains, why do we say Avinu Malkeinu by Nila, even though it's Shabbos? Because Nila is a Shas Sakana. Nila is a time when a person is the last moment. When you walk into any shul, there's an energy of screaming out to the Eibush, the Eibush should save us. And the Yid says, Rebbeinu Shalom, Leman loy nechtel, I shouldn't be punished, my oishik yadeinu. And the simple translation, of course we never could forget, the simple translation means that a person shouldn't be nichshel in the aveir of gzela. But the Schwab teaches, Leman loy nechtel v'oishik yadeinu, there's two ways for a person to steal. The pasuk says, Rachaki me oishek. There's one way a person could steal, is by a person taking from somebody else. There's another way for a person to steal, is by holding back. By holding back something. If a parent is not acting properly to a child, holding back love, holding back care, or a husband is holding back from his wife what she deserves. The person was Laman loy nechtal, the person was oishek, he was holding back. So explains Rav Schwab, Lamay nechtal my oishek yadeinu. Every one of us has a tafkid, has a tachlis. Every one of us has a tremendous koyach lamala, a koyach atfila, a koyach for a Yid to use his koyches. So a Yid says by davening, Laman loy nechtal my oishek yadeinu Rebbeinu Shalom. Maybe I don't believe in myself, and I'm not using the koyches that I have. And the Rambam writes, when the Rambam discusses Yom Noraim, and the Rambam discusses Rosh Hashanah, the Rambam says Tchiyah Shofar is a wake-up call. Tzorach kol adam sheyira atzmoi kol hashana kula kilu chesed zaka v'chesed chayiv v'chein kol ha'olam. Imagine each one of us would have thought to ourselves when we came to Shlul Rosh Hashanah that Klal Yisrael in the world is in a time of tremendous sakana. And my tefillas this year has a power of changing the whole world. That's what the Rambam says. When a Yid davens, his tefillas affect the whole world, and a person should look at the whole world is totally in his tefillas. And the Rambam writes, when it comes to mitzvahs aseim and atayr, it's something mitzvahs tzrichas kavon. The Rambam writes in Hilchas Tainis, mitzvahs aseim and atayr lizoik v'lariya b'chatzoitzes al kol tzara shetava. So a person has to think to himself, when am I getting this deraisa? Every one of us knows that Klal Yisrael is under sakana. So when Rabbi Portnoy goes to the Amud and he says the kapitel Tillim, every one of us is being Makayim a mitzvah, Aseim in a Torah, Lizoik ul Ariya b'chatzoitzis. Zok the Rambam b'dover zeh midarkei atshuvu. And Halacha Aleph, we have with us Rabbi Weintraub, is a very tifa lamdan. He'll explain me later the Rambam. And Halacha Aleph, the Rambam sounds like it's Halacha and Hilchas Tefillah. And Halacha Beis, the Rambam says v'dover zeh midarkei atshuva. Shebizman shetovei tzora v'yiziku aleh v'yariu. Yodu akoil. The Rambam's talking to every person. Why are these tzoras happening? Zok the Rambam b'glal maseyam haroim. Because of our actions. Zok the Rambam, avam lo yizoku v'lo yariu. Al yoyim adova zeh minig oilam. It might not be this week. It might not be next week. It might not be the week after. But one day there's many books going to be written to explain why al pi derech hateva this happened. That's what we tend to do. Things start off shaloi al pi derech hateva, and now all the experts are going to explain us exactly how it happened al pi derech hateva. Zok the Rambam, if a person says this is the way it goes, you know, for the Jewish people, there's been good times and bad times. Zok the Rambam, areza derech achzorius. This teaches us that good things happen and bad things happen for no reason. Someone told me he was driving with a taxi driver in Eretz Yisrael a day or two after this terrible tzara happened, and that's what the taxi driver said. You know, this is the way it happens. There's good time and bad times. You can't complain. We had many good years. Zok the Rambam, areza derech achzorius. V'gayrem eslam lidobek v'maseyim aroim. Now the Rambam is teaching us something very, very deep. So each yid that came to an asifa that was being mechazik because of the tzoras hazman, so each yid davened, he was mekayim a mitzvah aseim in a Torah. And what does every yid think to himself? He thinks to himself, you know why this is happening? Why did this happen? Because of me. Because I have a koiches, I'm a yid, and the Eibishter expects more of me. Now, many times, sadly, a person goes to the wrong speech. So a person, the great tzaddik or the rav gives a speech about the reason why this happened is because of this reason. And there's many reasons why things happen. So if the person walks out and says, the rabbi said a perfect speech, because exactly what the rabbi said, that's what I'm missing. Then a person knows we got the right speech. But if a person walks out, it's because of the non-religious, it's because of what that one does, what he does, what Yena does. Like the guy who comes home and says, the Rav gave an unbelievable speech. He mamash explained, I never figured out what the table next to me in shul, what the things they do wrong. Now I finally figured it out. The Eibishter says, Dr. Rambam, each one of us look into a mirror and we tell ourselves, the Eibishter expects more of me. I have to become a better person. The Eibishter looks down at each one of us and he says, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Zok the Rambam Azoy, a very, very scary Rambam. Zok the Rambam, elu she'en lam chelek lo'olam haba. Zok the Rambam, ha-porshim b'darchei hatzibur. Zok the Rambam in Perek Tshuva Perek Gimel Aloch Yud Aleph. Ha-porish midarchei hatzibur. Afal pishloy over averis. Ela nivdal me'adas Yisrael. Ve'einen oise mitzvus b'chlolon. Ve'loy nichnas b'tzaroson. Ela hoylech kedarkoi ke'echad migoya oretz. Ein loy chelek lo'olam haba. So every yid right now is getting tested. Am I a Reb Yisrael or am I a Klal Yisrael yid? How much am I feeling the pain of Klal Yisrael? Now, it's not enough for a person to get scared because there's protests in colleges. So what does he get scared? He gets scared for himself. He's scared for his children and his grandchildren. That's not a Klal Yisrael yid. That's a Reb Yisrael yid. A Klal Yisrael yid says, I'm part of Klal Yisrael. The Rambam sounds like this is part of Nivdal Me'adas Yisrael. The Yavitz explains in the Mishnah in Ovis, Dr. Yavitz Azoy. Dr. Yavitz, Hillel Oimer al Tifresh min Atzibur. Dr. Yavitz, being part of Klal Yisrael, gives the Yid special schusim. He has a special koyach because he's part of Klal Yisrael. And the Eibush is looking right now down at every Yid. And he says, is this Yid a Klal Yisrael Yid? Rabbeinu Yoina sounds a little different. Rabbeinu Yoina sounds is part of Dvar Hashem Boza. It's being mavazah the Eibishter by a person not being part of Klal Yisrael. Each one of us is Maimin B'Emunah Shleima. The Eibishter didn't take Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. The Eibusha didn't take Klal Yisrael going through 2,000 years of Golus, that the end of the game is to be stay in America. The Eibusha didn't take Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. The Eibusha didn't give us Eretz Yisrael, that Eretz Yisrael should look like the Eretz Yisrael that we have today. We're all Maimin B'Emunah Shlema, that we're part of a long story. We're part of history. And history is in the making. We're very, very close to Bias HaMashiach. And now we're being tested. Each one of us. Am I a Klal Yisrael Yid? Am I looking in the mirror this Shabbos? And am I saying to myself, instead of discussing the Achdus in Eretz Yisrael, what am I going to do this Shabbos to be Marba Ava V'Reis in my own home, with my own children, in my own shul that I daven in? What am I going to do this Shabbos that I didn't do last Shabbos? Because Hashem is looking at me. Am I using my koiches l'toy? So the Eibishter bench each one of us. We should be maimin ba'atzmeinu. That each one of us is a Klal Yisrael Yid. Each one of us has the power to daven for Klal Yisrael, the power to poil oisa Yeshua, by each one of us becoming a better person. So mezoiche sein, be'ez Hashem, to be Klal Yisrael Yidden, to feel the pain of Klal Yisrael. We should be zoichet a Shabbos of Aliyah, a Shabbos of Simcha. We have with us a Yid that we could say his first name is Reb Yitzchak, was Moisen Nefesh for Klal Yisrael this week. You see him come to learn when he just went through a surgery. That's a Klal Yisrael Yid. A Yid who himself didn't have the koyach to come, but he's pushing himself, because Klal Yisrael's B'tzara. We should be Zoicha Be'ez Hashem, to have a Shabbos of Kavshenu B'mitzvah V'sein Chalkeinu B'sarasecha, V'tar Libeinu L'avdecha B'emes.